today I want to talk about an article that was in oilprice.com, but they printed it in the yahoo.com finance section, and it's called "Is War Brewing in the South China Sea?" And it's a very interesting article, and I'm just finding out about this oilprice.com website. And it's talking about how China has taken some islands basically and made them into military installations. And having watched a lot of NHK, which is the basically Japanese news channel, and you can get an English version of it online. It's also in it's here in Los Angeles on regular antenna TV and also on cable. It's a big issue, and having been to China several times, China is trying to expand and exert itself in the South China Sea. And so you've got people like Japan and South Korea that are a little nervous by it, and then Hong Kong is having gone to Hong Kong, people in Hong Kong do not call themselves Chinese. They are like, I am not Chinese. They literally call themselves honkies, I'm not making that up, or Hong Kongers. So the Chinese government, it's a totalitarian government. But what this article goes into, and I tend to believe what this article is saying, is they talk about the corporate media. They're really pushing this China is evil narrative. And why that's important, and it's one of the things we've been talking about. I just did a video about the budget, what we spend on military in this country. It's 54% of our operating budget. It's more than the top 7 countries in the world. So when that kind of money is being spent on the American military, we need a justification. That's what a lot of this Russia, we got to be afraid of Russia and China. Now, I'm not saying Putin is a good guy, and I'm not excusing any of the things that the Chinese government has done or is doing, Tibet and many other things. When I was there performing as a comedian, they said, don't talk about the 3 T's, Tibet, Tiananmen, and the government. So, the 4 T's and Taiwan. I'm not excusing Russia or China, but when the American, we're pushing that narrative so hard, and so what do we do over there? We're doing, we're doing Navy drills with the Japanese Navy, and we're sending a bunch of ships over there, and the Delta Force and the Navy SEALs just happen to be training in the South China Sea. That's the kind of crap that America does. And the American media is complicit in this because they play this narrative of we're just freedom-loving America and all the big bad Russia and big bad China, and we go in there and we provoke them. And imagine if you were China or Russia, and not Russia because they bought off Trump, but let's just say you're China, and then here is this country that outspends you militarily. It doesn't matter that you have 1.5 billion people in your country, and America only has 300 billion. That's a lot of military force. And you have to be like, imagine their style, like, this is a little scary. And again, I'm not excusing any of their force or any of their totalitarianism. It's just, as I talk a lot about on this show with the corporate media and the agenda they're pushing, and you watch the news, I've talked about this many times, you watch the images that they sell us. They're always selling us, pharmaceutical companies buy a lot of ad time, but they also are selling us war. They're telling us there's war video games, and war is cool, and war is fun, and war, we gotta be war. So because war is an awful thing, and no human being would ever want to participate in war. If you actually knew what it was and saw it, no one would be like, this is the worst thing ever. Why would anyone do this? Let's try to settle this. So you have to do a lot of propaganda. And if you read Chris Hedges' Death of the Liberal Class, which I've talked about numerous times in this show, he talks about how that started in World War I, sanitizing war for public consumption, to getting the public on board with war. So if we go to war with China, everyone's like, we had to. China provoked us. They started it. It's always that stuff. We're always like Pearl Harbor or whatever. And because it's like the private prison industry. When you are building and you're getting all this federal money to build all these prisons, guess what? You need criminals. So you go out and arrest people for whatever, marijuana, and a black kid gets arrested 3 times more than the white kid gets arrested. That's what happens. So when you're spending this much money on military, we need an enemy. If there's no enemy out there, why are we spending almost $600 billion on the military? Here's why. We need an enemy, and here's how you do it. So and China, does what China does. They say stuff like this. This is China's response. As for China deploying or not deploying necessary territorial defensive facilities on its own territory, this is a matter that is within the scope of Chinese sovereignty. So it's just sort of China kind of does stuff and then just says, what do you mean? That's not a military installation, or they're claiming it's they have the right to this. And China likes to kind of encroach and just take things. So, but this is what's going on. And the article goes into, and I'll put the link below, of what the American corporate media, the angle they're taking. And when you watch, we got to pay close attention to the American corporate media, because if they're whatever they're pushing, there's some big corporate something behind it. Don't trust them for a second. Forbes, for instance, ran a piece that essentially listed all the reasons why China is a really bad actor in the region, and CNN talked to analysts who explained how the military buildup on the artificial islands will be gradual as China continues to exert its authoritarian influence over neighboring countries. That's the narrative, right? The reality of the situation in the South China Sea, all geopolitical analysis aside, is that there's about to be a hell of a lot of military hardware in those waters. As anti-media has been reporting, U.S. forces are already in the region taking part in joint drills with ally South Korea that will last until the end of April. Then at the beginning of May, Japan, another U.S. ally, will sail its Navy most powerful warship in the South China Sea on a 3-month tour. So imagine if a giant military like China was doing maneuvers in like the Gulf of Mexico or Baja California. Wouldn't we be like, what the fuck are they doing? So imagine China seeing the United States Navy. Now, yes, we have bases in South Korea and Japan, but wouldn't you be a little like freaked out? I would be like, maybe we need to set up more bases, and this is the escalation of power. And then it's like Bill Hicks had a joke in his act about America's like, in the movie Shane, Jack Palance is like, go for the gun. And then the guy, bullies the guy into going for the gun, and then he goes for him and shoots him down. He goes, see? It's like that. That's what we're doing. So the last paragraph here is what's important. With China showing no signs of backing away from its stance in the South China Sea, ideologically or physically, and with the corporate media willing and eager to push the, quote, evil China, quote, narrative that the U.S. military appears hell-bent on capitalizing on, it appears the long-dreaded collision course with China may indeed be not far off on the horizon. And we have a lunatic in the White House in charge. And this is the other thing. This will get us into a trade war with China. And let's not forget, they own 60% of our debt. And if they want to call that in, we're going to be in trouble. America owned a bunch of England's debt after World War II. And we wanted control of the Suez Canal. England didn't want us to. So we said, we're going to call in that debt if we don't get the canal. China could do that to us. Trump's our president. Could put us at war with China. Like, subscribe, share, and pay attention. Watch the corporate media, but just watch for their bullshit. Watch what's behind it. Who's buying ads? What's the narrative? What are they trying to sell us? Right? They're going to try to get us all worked up against either Russia or China. Pick, or maybe both. I don't know. They've already tried to tie Bernie to Russia now. You watch. And someone will tie China and Russia colluding against America. Ooh, that'd be a tasty war machine treat.